Probably one of the scariest things that can happen to you is getting put behind bars for decades when you were not guilty. These are Wrongful Convictions, Episode 1. Leon Brown and Henry McCulloch were the longest serving death row inmates in North Carolina, having served 31 years for a crime they never committed. In 1983, at the ages of 15 and 19, they were accused and convicted of raping and killing an 11-year-old girl. They're actually half brothers, and they both suffer from diagnosed intellectual disabilities. Then they were convinced at the time to give false confessions to the crime. And in 2014, thanks to DNA evidence found at the crime scene and tested, it was actually determined that a guy that had similar convictions on his record was the one that had committed the crime, and they were subsequently let free. Peter Lamone was actually accused of murdering a man named Edward in 1965 by a mafia informant and hitman. It wasn't until the year 2000, when a lawyer was going through the files, that he actually found that the FBI knew the informant was lying the entire time, but still convicted this man of murder. In 1974, this man, James Bain, was convicted of raping and kidnapping a 9-year-old boy. James spent 35 years in prison, and at the time of his release was the longest serving wrongfully convicted inmate. He became the lead suspect after the victim said the person identified themselves as Jimmy and gave a description that was similar to James's. Then after somebody mentioned James's name to the kid took on that James was the one who had done it, even though James had an alibi that was corroborated. And in 2009, DNA evidence proved that he was innocent. Ricky Jackson here sadly has the honors of being the longest termed person to ever be found innocent that stayed in prison for 39 years. He, along with 2 other black males in 1975, were wrongly convicted of murdering a white businessman from Cleveland. The sole evidence against him was a 12-year-old eyewitness who said Eddie had done the crime. But later, in 2013, Eddie came out and said, "No, the police coerced me to say that." With this newfound evidence, a judge dismissed his charges and he was ultimately released in 2014. Albert Woodfox was not only wrongfully convicted of killing a prison guard in 1972, but he also became the longest sentenced prisoner to solitary confinement in the United States, serving 43 years. So for 43 years, he was only allowed outside for an hour a day, and otherwise he was in solitary confinement. And in 2016, his conviction was overturned, and he pleaded no contest to lesser charges of manslaughter and burglary.